We welcome Mike Jankins to the desk here, as from the Jankins Law Firm, of course, as we're talking bankruptcy and some questions about it. And to be totally honest with you, Mike, when we first heard that you were going to come and talk to us about bankruptcy, we were like, really? How are we going to do that? But every time you come here, we learn some things about bankruptcy you had no idea. Yeah. You know, for the layman like us.
Well, I hope I can keep coming up with these ideas.
Well, they're working.
No pressure.
Now, here's something that a question that did come up not too long ago. Can anybody file for bankruptcy? That's one of the questions that was asked a couple weeks ago to somebody when I was talking to him.
Well, not everybody can file for bankruptcy. For Chapter 7, the type of bankruptcy that erases everybody's debts, there's certain income requirements that you have to meet to show essentially that you are entitled to do this type of bankruptcy. And so in the kind of bankruptcy we're talking about when we're saying Chapter 7 bankruptcy and erasing debts is consumer bankruptcy versus someone that had a failed business. So consumer bankruptcy, for purposes of the income requirements, is where more than 50% of your debt is consumer debt. And so then one thinks, well, what's consumer debt? Credit cards are consumer debt. Your home mortgage is consumer debt.
Oh, really?
The loan on your car is consumer debt.
About student loans?
Student loans are not consumer debt.
Okay.
And credit cards are consumer debt. So if more than 50% of that consumer debt, or if more than 50% of your debt is that consumer debt, that's when this income requirement and means testing comes into play.
Okay, what do you mean income requirement? You need to make a certain amount or
earn
not
under.
Not make a certain amount.
Not make a certain amount. So on the income requirements, we look to see if your family size is below the median income for that family size in the state of Iowa. Every state's got different numbers. Okay. And so when we start out in Iowa, family of one, a single person, that's about $44,000 a year. Then if you're married, have a wife, then it increases, and then you're up to $62,000 a year. If you have a child and a husband and wife, it goes up to $82,000 a year.
82, really?
And then for a family of four, a couple kids, it was 68, and then family of four is 82.
Okay, gotcha.
So if you're below those levels, you can qualify for Chapter 7, almost no questions asked. You glide right through. However, if you're above that, it doesn't mean you can't have a bankruptcy. It just means it's more complicated. Then you have to pass something called a means test. And a means test is essentially, we have to net out the income. And that's also true when figuring out the median income. We're looking in both instances in a block of time 6 months back from when you're filing bankruptcy. So we're looking at this 6-month period of time, taking the gross, so we have to be very detailed and be very accurate. We require all the pay stubs to figure this out. Okay. And so when we're doing the median income, we total it and divide it by 6 to get a monthly figure.
Got it.
And then we multiply that times 12 to figure out what that annual amount would be versus the median income.
Makes sense.
So now when we go to this means test, we're not using the gross anymore. We're subtracting from the gross and getting to the net. And in this case, the net means we take out the taxes and we take out the insurances, but that's it.
Taxes
now,
and insurance.
Sometimes retirement comes out if it's mandatory. So that means 401ks do not come out. Self-employed IRAs don't come out. What type of retirements would come out would be mandatory IPERs. State employees have those. Some of the universities have TIAA CREF, and then the union pensions. So these are all mandatory. The employee doesn't have a choice on whether these come out. Okay. So we subtract all of these out from the pay, and we get to a net figure per month. And then from that figure, we start subtracting certain things. And these certain things are living standards that have been set up by the Internal Revenue Service and been used for years and years in determining when taxpayers owe the government money, how much are they going to have to pay back every month to the government on a payment plan.
Okay.
So it was essentially taken out of the IRS handbook. So they took those standards out, and then they incorporated those into the bankruptcy law for this means test. You usually think IRS, oh my gosh, this is going to be horrible, but it really isn't. They're fair. It starts out with your housing costs, so we subtract that, and it's divided into 2 parts: the utilities that you would have, and that's based on your family size and the county you live in. and then you get a rental allowance if you're not a homeowner, or a mortgage payment, or if you have more than one mortgage payment on your house, the total of the mortgage payment.
Okay.
And you subtract those out. What's interesting really quickly on that is if you're a renter, it matters a lot what county you live in. If you have a family of 2 and you're living in Dallas or Polk County, Iowa, the rental allowance they give you on this formula could be $1,100 or $1,200 for a rental allowance.
Really?
But if you live in one of the southern counties or one of the smaller counties in Iowa, you might have a rental allowance of $650.
Wow.
And so it's a big deduction on this formula. Ultimately, when we're subtracting these standards from the formula, you have to then have approximately $197 left or less. So if you get down to less than 197 from this netting of your income, then you pass the means test and you qualify for Chapter 7 bankruptcy.
Then they'll
And
go
it's
through it.
allowed.
Okay.
And some of the other items that can come out that are on the formula, they give you a broad category to cover such things as food, clothes, and incidentals, and again, that's based on family size. So a family of 1 might get about $580, a family of 2 goes up to about $900 and some dollars, and then 3 goes up to about $1,300, and 4 about $1,500. So that's a deduction off the formula and covering a wide range of your family's living expenses. Then they give you medical deductions. It's automatic $60 per head in the household and no questions asked. But you can also deduct your actual medical if it exceeds that. Some people have lots of medical problems, and that's one of the reasons that they've got financial problems.
Right, in the first place.
High medication costs, frequent visits to doctors due to chronic conditions. So that can be a fairly significant deduction. Another main deduction they give you is for transportation. For each adult in the household, you can claim up to 1 vehicle. So that's usually going to be for a husband and wife, 2 vehicles. And you get an operating allowance for the vehicle. It's not so great. It's about $212 for up to 2 vehicles, so $424. There's another transportation allowance that you get if you have a loan on a vehicle, so a car loan. And so that's another $517 deduction. If your car payment's $200, you still get a $517 deduction. So that kind of makes up for the low operating cost.
Right. Okay.
So if you have 2 cars and 2 car payments, you're getting about $1,034. So these are big deductions on the formula that can get you to passing the means test.
Right.
And he did these off the top of his head, too. There's no notes on here. Look, just a little type thing, no notes on here. We need somebody like you. If this is a question, we need somebody like you to handle all this. And what's the easiest way to get a hold of you?
Well,
like this?
you can reach me by phone, and we're happy to talk to you. The phone number is 255-1855. You can find me on the internet at www.iowa-bankruptcylaw.com, or you can find us at our new office at 700 2nd Avenue, Suite 103, and we'll be happy to visit.
That sounds good, but yeah, there is a possibility if somebody does have a question about this, and maybe you're thinking you're making a little too much money with all those things that you just mentioned just now, you might be in that wheelhouse of being able to take advantage of the bankruptcy.
People can make $100,000, and if they have a larger family, they can qualify.
That's amazing. That's hard to believe. I didn't think that was possible. Great. Well, thank you so much, sir. That was well done. Well done.
Thanks.
It is 10 minutes before 9 o'clock.